you up on that. I'm going to put it up here too.
Okay.
And then I'll get out of your way.
Hey, are you guys ready to make a cute little mug rug? This is Suzanne Harmon with A1 Vacuum and Sewing. And I'm going to wait maybe just a minute in case we have some
so weird
students that want to get ready. I don't have to admit anybody, or right?
Nope.
Jeannie's helping me.
We're just getting, you know us, flying by the seat of our pants.
That's what we do at A1 Vacuum and Sewing.
Okay, I'm going to do YouTube so you can see comments. How do I get rid of this thing?
So this is the cute one that we're going to do today, and it's called Farm Life, which was perfect for me because I truly was raised in a barn. I really do live in a barn.
That's your preferred
That's my preferred place. I do have a house, but my preferred place is the barn. So of course when I saw this one, I told Jeannie I had to have it. Had to do it.
Okay.
So she's getting my computer set up so I can see comments. This is different for me than the Zoom class where you guys can talk to me. So if you notice some awkward silence, it's probably because I'm waiting for someone to say something.
Okay, your chat will be right over here.
Okay.
And then no thanks, and then you can call me if you need anything.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Go
Don't take that paper. I have to watch her. She had to show me how to open the threads. I would have been struggling. So I think we're about ready to go. And so we're going to get started.
Yep.
This
Did
is,
you get a bobbin?
yes, I have a bobbin in. So this is what we're going to make today, the Farm Life from the Kimberbell Volume 6 mug rugs. And I'm going to move over to my cutting mat. I think we sent a little notice out to have your fabrics pre-cut. I kind of felt you probably would. In the kit, Jeannie gave you enough fabric of most of the fabric to actually make 2 of these. But the scraps, not so much. But seriously, if you don't have stashes, you're really not a sewer. We all have those fabric stashes. And this could be done with some other. But I'm going to show you real quick here. I don't want to make you dizzy, so I'm going to move slowly. I'm going to move over to that mat, so maybe close your eyes, because I have to figure out how to swing this arm around. Here we go. And I will be moving over here, because I did have a little bit to cut as far as my shape flex. Actually, I'm going to iron that first. Sorry, I'm just getting oriented into this classroom here. So if you didn't print your instructions, I'm going to be reading them. We're doing the Farm Life. And they give you the thread colors. Now this is glide thread, but I made the sample with what I had at home, which was Floriani. And we just kind of grabbed some colors today. So they might not be the actual glide colors suggested. But that's what's kind of fun about this embroidery. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press the shape flex onto these pieces. And the reason we want to add the shape flex to that, and you know it's got the bumpy side, that's the part that's going to stick to the fabric, and the smooth side, is we're stitching a lot of stitches on this fabric. And so by stabilizing it, it really does make it, you don't get crinkles and wrinkles. Now this first fabric, the white one, has these dots. So that's the back side. You can see where it's shiny. So I'm going to put my shape flex on this piece right now. And it gives you exact measurements, but most of this is going to get, probably my iron's not ready to go. So I'll just keep babbling along here while I'm waiting for that to heat up. We're going to stabilize the front pieces. So that's going to be the white fabric plus this pretty, I don't know what you would call it. It's kind of a green, kind of a teal, a light teal. And I had cut a piece of shape flex that would fit that as well. So again, I want to make sure I put that proper size down. And then we're going to be stabilizing the 3 barn pieces as well. So we have a brown, we have the red, and then we have the yellow for the sun. And when I do small pieces like that, I just lay it on a strip of shape flex and then cut it off. And so I'm going to show you here what I mean by that. Like I had a scrap piece, and I'm going to lay those 3 pieces on there after I press these. Still waiting on this iron. And then I'll cut those. So it's kind of flashing my iron. It's not quite ready, but I'm going to give it a whirl anyway. And you might already have this done. And sometimes just kind of holding that iron on there. So that looks good to go. And we'll get this one. And I think when I made my sample, let me just show you that on these instructions. It said the barn pieces, and I think I forgot to stabilize my brown, and it really did need it. So on the instructions here for the barn life, this just gave us our fabric dimensions and the supplies that we needed, which I'm looking around right now for paper tape because we're going to need that. So let's start right here, and it's going to have us, we'll come back to that, fold the 2 back pieces in half widthwise, wrong sides together, and press well. So let's go ahead and do that. So that was the 2 6x9 pieces. Now we gave you a fat quarter in the kit, which means it was 18 inches by 22. So these are 2 9-inch pieces. So when I cut my fabric, because I don't like to waste anything, it was already 18 inches. So I just cut a strip 6 inches and then cut it in half. And this is going to be the back. Let me grab my sample again. So this is going to be this back little envelope that we make. And you know, I make them like this open, and I've given them as gifts, and people wonder if you're supposed to store something in here. And so if you don't like that opening or explaining it to your friends, you can put a little strip of steam-a-seam and then it stays closed. But really, it's so simple, and it's quite easy. So we're going to fold these in half this way. So I had the long 9 inches. I'm folding it like this, and we're just going to press that closed. I'm feeling lopsided here because I have 2 wool mats, and there's a different size one, and so it feels like I'm falling off the edge. Let me do that other piece. And this is what's so exciting, is there's no sewing afterwards to this mug rug. It's all done in the hoop. So it just doesn't get easier than that. All right, there's that. And I'm going to get that piece of shape flex that I told you about that was a scrap piece. So I'm going to put it that bumpy side up. I'm going to lay my pieces on here. And again, because I don't like to waste, often I will just do, okay, that's not going to quite fit, so I'm just going to, and I don't like to cut a lot, so I make use of those edges. I'm going to just leave a little gap there, and I'm going to go ahead and press those down. And usually what I do after I cut that is then I come back and hit it with the iron again. And let's do our red piece on there. I don't want to get my iron on the shape flex, so I'm just doing it enough so I can quick cut that out. So I'm going to move over to my cutting mat. So try not to get seasick as I move along. And I will make sure, and you should have had a 6x8 piece of batting as well. Let me make sure that that's in the camera, and it is. And so I'm going to trim this up real quick. In fact, I'll turn it like this way and use my ruler, and I'm just going to quickly cut this out. Let's see here. And hopefully I'm going to come and check and make sure that that is still in the camera. Perfect. It is. So this is a great way to use up those odd pieces of that shape flex. And really, you can just cut around this. Again, these aren't quilt squares, so they don't have to be perfect. They're applique pieces. They're going to get trimmed anyway. And there's that one. And I'll quick do my red piece here. That's going to be my barn. I don't have a red barn. I've always wanted a red barn. All right, I'm going to move you back to my pressing mat area. Here we are. And by now my iron is quite warmed up. And I really want to get that shape flex on there. So I'm just going to give it a quick press. We call it an iron, but we're just pressing. So I'm pressing down so that those are on there. And that is really going to let these pieces hold up well when we do all these stitches on there. All right, let me get those instructions back out and let's see what we have going now. All right, so we did our those back pieces. We pressed those and we stabilized fabric piece 1 and 2 and the barn pieces. And so I went ahead and did the sun also. It doesn't tell us to, but I did it. I really, well, you'll see when we stitch around, because we're going to stitch that rooster on top of that. And so I felt like that was something that should have been done. Now the next thing is to load the Farm Life mug rug embroidery file into the machine. So I have already loaded mine, but let's go ahead and move back over to the machine. I'll try to, again, not make you seasick. I gotta remember which way I went around here. Apologies. There we go. I'm gonna follow over here with you. I don't want to spin this camera back, so I do need to load my stabilizer into my hoop. I'm going to just grab it and show you what I'm talking about. We were using a medium cutaway, and we're doing the 5x7 hoop. So I'm going to be loading that stabilizer in here. Let me back out a little bit. And as you know, it's real important that we want that point right here on that hoop. It's going to go to the top. So stand by while I load that stabilizer quickly into my hoop. Appreciate your patience. I had everything set out and in an order of how I was going to do that while I had the camera over there. And my roll of stabilizer was 15 inches, so I have a little bit extra. But if you have the 12-inch, is perfect for that 5x7 hoop. I'm going to use my handy advanced screwdriver. I see my camera's a little crooked. I think I'm going to be doing a lot of apologizing for this class. I'm going to loosen this up a little bit just so I can get it snapped down in there all the way. There we go. This is probably my favorite screwdriver. More so for the hoops because my wrist would get so sore like cranking these things down. And they're worth their weight in gold. You can tighten that hoop. It's so easy to do, but you can also, we used it just a minute ago to put the embroidery foot on. All right, I have a pre-wound bobbin loaded, and I'm going to show you that I had already loaded my design. It was already had it on a USB, and it's called Farm Life. It's going to look sideways because that's how we're going to, the orientation obviously of the hoop. And I like to always, it doesn't matter, the machine knows what hoop I'm using, but I like to always tell it that I'm using the 5x7. And the reason I do that, and I make sure that my speed's at the max, all of this is defaulted because that's why it's backlit. And I like to see that it's going to fit in that hoop. If I had put a larger hoop up there, that dotted line would be different. And so I'm going to say that I want to embroider, and we're going to be ready here. I'm going to go ahead and load my hoop. Hopefully this is going to, our camera holder sometimes gets loose as we move it around, and then it flops. And I need both hands to do some of this. All right, I'm going to grab my instructions. We're going to go through them step by step, especially just in case you didn't print them out. You can always have them just on your computer and have them ready to follow. And this is probably what I love about Kimberbell, is the colored photos, the step-by-step printed instructions. And one of those things about it, when you see the box that's got the little gray shading in it, it means that the fabric, the thread color does not matter. It's not going to show. And so I'm going to go all the way down until I see a color that we're going to use. And I'm going to go ahead and load that in there first and do these steps, because why put a thread color in there that we're just going to have to change? And so looking at my instructions with my thread colors, that is a yellow. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab my yellow thread, and I'm going to load that. So I'm going to show you this with the glide thread, because when you buy a new roll, it's got this plastic on there, and I was looking for one of those little seams to tear off and struggling, and Jeannie just slid it right off the top. So now you guys will know that as well. And you get the excess thread. I can open this base up because that's where the thread was to keep it from unraveling. And I loaded my 10 thread thread holder. You don't have to, but for this project we're going to use 6 different colors. And so I really like to, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. So the phone completely came out of here. And so I was worried about you getting car sick or seasick earlier, and then that just popped right out. So it's going to take me a minute here to get it loaded. Bear with me. I'm going to lay this phone down for a minute and open this up. I totally apologize. There is a way to open this. Okay, let's try that one again. Oh, there we go. Okay, back to where were we? We were threading the machine with yellow, and I'm trying to get everything situated and to hold still. So and I was telling you how much I love my 10 spool thread stand. When I did a tiling scene, and it uses all of that different thread colors. Oh my gosh, I would preload that. It was so awesome. All right. I'm all loaded here and ready to go. So let's look at our instructions again. And we are going to start off by, we're going to stitch the batting placement line directly onto the stabilizer. And I'm just going to tell you this too, if you're Russian or you start doing a lot of these, that it's going to, I'm just going to show you this real quick. This batting is going to pretty much take up this whole hoop space. So if you wanted to skip that step, you could. And just so you know how to advance that, we would go to our needle right here. And that brings up where we're on stitch 0 right now. And you could advance to step number 2 if you wanted. But let's go back to the beginning, and that's going to stitch this around right here. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And I'm going to just say, let's do it. I'm glad it didn't break Jeannie's phone. So kind of hard to see that yellow on the white, but in person right here, it shows up pretty well. And Jeannie is a big spray baster. I tend to do a lot less, but she would lightly spray this, and she prefers to use the Gunnelled, I think it's, let me grab it so I'm saying it right. We sell it here in the store. The KK 100. It is awesome spray. And you would want to just do a fine spray on there. If you're not a spray person, you can lay it in here and you can tape it in place. I have found the batting tends to kind of stick to the stabilizer, and I tend to do neither of those when I don't have to, and I just kind of help it a little bit. So I've laid that on there, and I want you to see when you look on the screen what's going to take place. It's going to go around the outside, and then it's going to go across, because that's going to be the line that we need for the next step. So I am going to teach you bad habits of not doing taping and I'm going to, so obviously you don't want to get whacked by that, but I just kind of keep smoothing my batting. I'm just going to keep kind of smoothing that. And you can see we didn't get any kind of puffiness. It didn't move. So I have found that the batting, especially if I kind of rub it back and forth a bit, just stays in place. All right, let's move to our next step. So we stitched that line, and then we placed it to cover that line, and then we stitched the template. And now it's going to have us trim the batting close to the stitch line. And the reason that we're going to do that is we don't want the bulk in the seam when we turn this inside out. And so we need to trim. You don't want to cut your stitches, but we're going to trim as close to it as possible. And I tend to pull my hoop out when I have to. My favorite scissors for that are going to be these curved ones, and they're curved because they fit over the hoop without but you can still get it down to the fabric. And I know my hands are going to kind of be in the way, but I'm going to show you how much of this that I can trim with it still locked in place. I'm going to cut that side one, and then this one. And I just can kind of feel my scissors up against that. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. do the rest. And sometimes you can still keep it partially in the arm and trim it. Now, the one thing I'm jealous of with Jeannie is she's ambidextrous and she can cut with both of her hands, both left or right-handed, and I do not have that talent. So often I'll just pull the hoop all the way out and kind of set it on my lap to do this portion. And again, I'm just going to get the top part here. I know my crazy hands are in the way of some of this. So I'm just going to move this close. You can kind of see that I trimmed it right up to that line. Then we won't have that bulk in our mug rug when we're done. And let me just put my hoop back in. And let's take a look at what we're going to do next. Okay, we've trimmed the batting close to the stitch line, and now we're going to place piece 1 fabric right side up, completely covering section 1. And so let's go back to fabric 1 was our white dot fabric. And so we want it to cover that portion. So if you ever are unsure what's one, you just look at your picture and it was white. It's the bigger piece. It's the 4x6. And something about, excuse me, it was 5x6. Something about the Kimberbell mug rugs. They're all done like this, and you'll remember the measurements almost by heart if you make enough of these. So I have my white fabric, and because our shape flex, and I'm looking through the camera, it kind of showed the dots through. It's easy to put it the wrong way. But this is my top of my fabric, and I'm going to, we had that stitch line right there, and we want to make sure that's covered. And I'm also kind of making sure I'm splitting the difference. I can feel that batting. You know, I don't want to be too far this way, so I really want to make it equal as best as possible. And I'm feeling down here as well. But that stitch line also needs to be covered. So I'm going to shimmy that up just a little bit more. And again, I'm not spraying this in place, especially my stabilized fabric. It's just going to, I've got excess all around, and if it shifts or it's a little bit crooked, it's going to be fine. And we're just going to stitch a line straight across to hold that in place. And it was that simple. And our next step, so we just finished, we're gonna, let's see, we stitched, excuse me, we placed that fabric, we stitched that trimming placement line, and now we're gonna trim the fabric close to the stitch line, and then we're gonna place fabric 2 right side down, centered along that placement line. So I kind of read 2 steps to you. Probably I'm going to slide this out partially so that I can get to that. So we're just trimming this excess because you don't want that. We're going to sew that next fabric's going to be here, and we don't want to see that through there. And so we're going to trim that away as close to that yellow stitch line as possible. And I'll let you see it after I did it here, so you can take a look. You can see that I trimmed it right up to it, and then I read you 2 steps at once. Our next one is, I just have to find my fabric. Thank you for bearing with me. This is that 4x6 piece. We're going to put it right side down. And when they say centering over this, they don't mean centering this way. They're talking about centering here and here. And we actually use that line to just butt it right up to that. And then we're going to be, I got to put my hoop back in. And all that's going to take place is that it's going to stitch this down, and it's like a 1/4 inch seam. So, and I certainly didn't want to spray because we're going to flip this afterwards. I apologize. Let me kind of back up a little bit. And again, we could tape this. It's stabilized, so it's thick. It's not going to move. Awesome. So you can see that we just had that nice little 1/4 inch. That yellow thread just doesn't show up well enough for you guys probably to see that on this camera. And then let's take a look at those directions. So we just did fabric 2. It was centered on the placement line. We stitched it, and now it wants us to flip that and press well. And then it's asking us to tape the corners in place. And I likely might have to find some tape. I'm looking around the room. And I'm going to move you over to my camera so that you can see me press that. Or I'm moving it over to the iron. We're going to flip it. And then we're just pressing this. And so we're going to do this. And when they talk about taping it in place, we're just going to put a piece up here in this corner and then this corner, if you so desire. Again, I have found, and the nice thing with the Kimberbell tape, okay, I'm moving you back over to my iron, is that it, you can reuse it. So I can, let me get this thread out of the way here. And my iron turned off, but it's, I think it'll, and I think this is pretty cool because it's going to fit right inside my, I have a smaller little Liso iron that fits right in there. And so that worked out quite well. I'm searching in here for some tape. I'm not seeing, I'm chuckling because I just found some transport tape and it's got poppy tooth marks in it. So we'll see if we can get some pulled off of there. Let me see if there's another roll of it. That's kind of cute. Let's see if I can find the start of that tape. I had my purse on the floor and she's starving. I think they have her on a diet. And she found a couple of tubes of hand lotion in there, and she opened those up looking for snacks. All right, so it doesn't take very much. I'm going to tear this in half, and I'm just going to have it kind of be on the fabric and the hoop, and we just want to hold that so it doesn't get caught in the foot, like so. And we're ready to move back to this machine. I'm sorry if that, I don't want you guys to get dizzy. I try to go really slow, and then it makes me talk slow. That's pretty funny. Get situated back over here, and let's take a look at what the next step is going to be. So what it's going to do is it's going to stitch around the outside, and to hold our green fabric now in place and to hold our white fabric down on the batting. And so we're looking here, our next, so we've just pressed that piece over, taped the corners in place, and we're going to stitch the background tack down line, and then we're going to take our tape off. So get that out of the way. And we could have taped these corners too, but this is lying pretty flat because it's already been kind of stitched up here. I'm not going to tape it. sometimes I still just kind of massage that fabric a little bit so that you don't have any puckers. And now it said that we could take that tape off, and then the next step is going to be, let's take a look at on here, and then we'll look. You can see that it's going to do the quilting on the whole mug rug. And so this was where the thread color mattered. So make sure you, if you happen to have a different color in, you want to be sure. I'll show you on the directions. This is where it shows us now we need yellow, and we're going to stitch the quilting detail. And so we're going to make sure that we have that yellow in. I'm going to get that tape off of my corners first, and then I just kind of stick it to the machine off to the side because I can use this tape again. I also like the Kimberbell paper tape. I've used when I've been out and I needed something, I've used blue painter's tape, but it tends to roll up kind of frequently. All right, we're ready to do that quilting. And I'm going to go over to the computer while that's doing that and see if anybody had any questions. See that Lila said, good afternoon, good to see you. I think that's all that I have so far. Oh, hello from Tennessee, Cindy West, hi. Let's see, Casey Shaw, I just logged in with you from under the desk. Thinking, what was I doing? I thought, I'm like, what the heck was I doing? CJ asked if we're recording this. Yes. And so you'll be able to get it on YouTube. And Cindy West said, yes, we can come back and watch that. So, sorry I'm a little late on my answering you guys. Like I said, I'm used to teaching the Zoom class, and then you talk to me live. So this is just so awesome that the quilting design is part of the mug rug. You didn't have to buy two separate, you know, on their quilts. If you want the background quilting, it's a separate design that you have to purchase. And again, while that's stitching, I'm going to go get my spray tint. Isn't that a cute honeycomb design there? And when you're first stitching that, it looks like it's overwhelming to the mug rug, but after we lay everything down and do the rest, it's amazing that it's so subtle. It's in the background. And it gives it personality. And I'm just scrolling up my comments. I don't know if they get added to the top or the bottom. Thanks for bearing with me. All right, we've done the quilting, and now we're going to stitch the sun placement line. And so again, we get to use the yellow. And so we can just go ahead and say, let's do it. All right, our next directions are that we're going to place the sun fabric right side up, covering that. And note that in the sample, this fabric's directional. The straight lines in the fabric run horizontally across the top from the top of the design to the bottom. So, oh, in the fabric, but they've turned it. So that didn't make sense to me horizontally because they're running it vertical in the picture. So we want to make sure that we lay our sun. As you can see on my sample, I did do that. And this is it is, again, because we've stabilized this, I believe that it would be just fine. But we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of spray based on there. And so I have set up, we sell these spray tents. They're fantastic. And it works well if you lay a piece of cardboard down in them so your spray tent doesn't get icky, because you can throw this away after it gets icky. So I'm just going to give it a quick little, doesn't take much, but that does help to keep it in place. So I'm going to move you back. I wonder if you guys get dizzy when we do that. Now this is the part you want to pay attention, because the orientation, if you take a look on the screen, remember we're working sideways. We've got our mug rug sideways. And so, and maybe that's what they meant about the horizontal. We are going to turn them horizontally, but they're going to be vertical when our mug rug is done. And that placement line is just so that I can put this and make sure that I cover it. And one thing about Kimberbell, there's a lot of waste on their fabric because they make this plenty big. And I'm going to smooth it down so it stays in place. That was what the spray base did. But it makes it nice to make sure you don't even, I could just kind of, you know, barely put it in there, not worry was I being exact. When I'm using my leftover fabric, you know, sometimes I get really close, but we've got plenty of room here. And so now it's going to do the tack down. And see how it didn't pucker because we did that spray base and it's stabilized. And any tack down stitch with Kimberbell is going to go around twice. So that's a really nice thing too, because then when you're trimming, sometimes if you get too close, you don't have to worry too much. And I have, I'm going to go ahead and use, I've got smaller scissors that I use, but I'm going to go ahead and just do it with this one. I'm going to slide my hoop partially out. I might have to still take it out, but I always try it first. So let me move my arm back here. I guess we should read that on the directions first. We stitched that tack down line, and then we're going to trim the fabric close to the stitch line. And you've got a little wiggle room with this because it's always going to do a decorative stitch of some sort. It might just be a satin stitch. I'm probably going to pull this out so that I can turn it. I'm trying to keep it in the field of the camera for you guys. And if I'm reaching around with those scissors, and when I do it, I kind of pull up on my fabric a little bit, and I've found then that I don't have any crazy excess. It tends to work well. And you don't have to pull up like you're a weightlifter. You just add a little pressure to it, and I feel like it really works well. And my smaller scissors, which are over there in my case, are great for sometimes if you get a little extra left over. But I know that it's going to get covered by the decorative stitch. Again, looking at my sample, it's a pretty generous decorative stitch. I'm going to load this back in there. And we're now where we're still on yellow, and we're going to stitch the sun decorative outline. And if you ever want to know like how long that these take, you know, this was our total stitch out time. We're only 5 minutes into it, even though we've been working at it a little bit longer. But right now we're on this stitch. It says 1 minute. Most of these next ones are 1. When we get to some red, we see a 5-minute stitch. And I'm just going to take a quick peek and see if I got any more comments by that stitching. Don't see any other comments. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I did not stabilize my sun on the sample. And you see that little bit of puckering in there? Because it just said to stabilize our barn pieces, and it didn't say the sun. And I'm just delighted with, look at how well that's on there. So you know, obviously when we stitch our rooster on there, it's going through another layer, but I believe that it needed it. All right, let's see what we've come up to on our next step. So first off, notice that it's gray. The next 2 steps are gray. If we wanted, we could just leave the yellow on there, and then we're going to go into the red. I might go ahead, because the yellow has been a little difficult to see on here. I think I'm probably going to go ahead and load my red, and then we're going to stitch the barn placement line. So I am going to go ahead and load my red thread. And so once I know my presser foot's up, I can take it out through here, and then it's not being pulled back through the machines, through those tension discs. Let me grab my red thread. I can't tell you how often I make a mug rug for a gift because they're so quick, and then I'll buy like a cute coffee cup to go with it. I bought this one, I'm trying to think of what the name, it wasn't a Kimberbell, but it was mug rugs. And then it included where you could print out on the printer the description of, basically it told you what you could use a mug rug for. I mean, some people see it and they're not sure that it's just a coaster for your cup. They think it's, you know, wall decor or something as such. And so I really enjoyed that, because then you're kind of giving them what it really is. All right, we're going to stitch our barn placement line. And see, I like that we can see that better. I'm glad that we switched to the red. I better check and see what time. I can't believe that we've been going for 50 minutes already, but I think we're moving along well. We're going to place the barn fabric right side up, and then we're going to stitch that tack down line and then trim the fabric close to the stitch line. So a lot of this is repetitive, but I love that they give you all those directions. And so I'm going to give it a quick spray. I'm not going to move the camera over there. I'm just going to, once you've seen it once, you know what I'm doing. And you don't want to gum up your needle and all that. And that's why you just barely are putting that on there. And so again, I'm being generous with covering that stitch down line. And then I want to put it in place with the adhesive. And now I'm going to stitch down the tack down line, so remember it's going to go around twice. Oh, I didn't do a very good job, did I? Did you see how close I was to that line? I should have lifted the fabric and looked. Oh my goodness. So I'm looking through the phone and seeing what I'm doing, but I should have lifted it up, and so that's going to be actually even a little bit hard to trim. All right, we know that we need to trim it. I believe that I had read that to you, yes. And so you're going to watch me as I struggle to trim that. It's not bad. I'm glad it wasn't right on the, completely on the edge. Of course, you know, I dropped the phone, so that was probably the worst part. So stitching right almost on the edge is the least of it. And hopefully I'm not going too fast and you're keeping up with me. That's the part about not being able to see you guys sewing and thumbs up and what have you, so that I know that you're following right along. Make sure I got all my, I got a little excess right there. Again, the stitching is going to more than cover up any kind of funky little spots that I did in the trimming. Again, I'm going to show you we're going to have this pretty heavy satin stitch, and then the roof is going to go over the other part. Let's make sure the next step, it looks like, is just going to be our, where were we? Stitch the wall details, the barn satin outline, and the door outline. So this is the one that's going to take 5 minutes. Try to get that down there. Better get that going. While that's stitching, I'm going to grab some smaller scissors. Also, while that's stitching, then we'll go ahead and move along in the instructions. The next one, we're going to have to do a thread change. That's the cream color. We're going to stitch the window and door placement lines. And then we're going to put the window and door fabric right side up, covering those placement lines. And our window and door fabric is the brown, but it's going to want the cream colored because you can see that it's all stitched with the cream colored. And so I'm just going to get my cream colored onto my thread stand and just have it ready. I love that detail in the walls when you look at the sample up close. It really gave it like it's a siding on the barn. So that was quite cute. Interesting that it's doing that satin in red. It's around the door because it ends up getting covered with decorative, but I think it still gives it some 3-dimension. I'm going to go ahead and, because we're going to do the window and doors next, I'm just going to spray baste it while this is stitching. Or I'll have it in the tent ready. I'll follow in order. If you recall, the next thing we're going to load our cream thread and we're going to stitch the placement line for it. So we're right to here. This is our cream. We're going to stitch that window and door placement line, and then we're going to put the fabric down and tack it down. So I'm threading my cream colored thread. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch the tack down line. Now it's going through a lot of layers. So there's our door tack down. And then it's going to do the window. And our brown fabric is just one piece, so we're going to have it cover both of those placement lines. So I'm going to put some spray baste on there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cover. This time I'm going to pay better attention how I'm doing. There we go. Press that in place, and then we're going to go ahead and do the tack down line. And it does a really good job with double stitching that. It does make it quite easy to trim. And having the spray base it's really nice. That fabric doesn't move. And especially when it's been stabilized. And so we already know our next thing then is to trim the fabric close to the stitch lines, but they've highlighted, be careful not to cut the stitches around the door. So I think they're talking about the red stitches. And then we're going to use cream colored again, and we're going to stitch the window and door decorative outlines and detail. So I likely will slide this back a little bit here. And this is where I love my smaller curved ones. These are pretty good sized straight lines, but maybe for this one. But if I ever get into something smaller, and I'm just going to come over here. And I know with my big old hands in the way, you probably can't see that all that well. But you know what I'm doing. I'm stitching, and you see how close that I was able to get. And I'm going to pull this out all the way and turn it. I'm trying not to hit the camera. I know that probably makes you dizzy too. I know when I watch videos and their hands are in the way, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't see what they're doing. And sometimes there's just no way around it. Like, you're working from behind the camera. And that little piece, I'm going to come back with my smaller scissors. Actually, I'm just going to cut this through the middle. There we go. And you can kind of see I've got a little excess. Now I'm going to, I especially had that little piece there, and that's where I'm going to use these little ones, because I really feel like I can get in there. And I didn't feel like I ever was in risk of cutting those red stitches. I still not sure why they did that, because I don't think you can even see them. All right, and now we're ready for that decorative stitch. Now, you might hear it clunking in that, because that's a lot of fabric that it's gonna go through. And I see my red thread got in the way there. All right, and this is a 3-minute stitch out. Probably going to wind my red thread up, get it out of the way. And since that's a 3-minute stitch out, let's take a look at what we'll be doing next. We're going to be doing, now that's the olive green, that box with the white line through it, just verifying on our chart it was the olive green, just like an army color. So we're going to stitch the plant elements, number 1, details and fills. So all I'm going to do while that barn doors decorative stitch is doing it is to get my olive green. So this is what I'm going to be using for that. Just get it ready to go. I got so excited when I see those barn doors, though. The cross through them, that's classic country barn. I just think that's so cute. Oh, I think my needle came unthreaded. Did you guys see that? I thought that was a lot of fabric to go through. So I'm going to put my foot up, rethread that. I mean, I saw it before the machine even squawked at me and told me. And it was very few stitches, but I'm still going to back it up and I'm going to show you. If you're pros at this, these are things that you already know. So I'm coming back over here. So we are on step 15 and we want it to go back to the beginning of that. So I'm going to go into my stitch selector and I'm going to hit, I didn't want to hit the down, I wanted you to see that advanced it. So we're going to go this up one. And now we're at the very beginning of 15 because I came back to it. And so it's going to be ready to start. Oh, why did it do that? I must have gone, actually, that was my error because that was all one step. So I should have paid way better attention to what I was doing. And so I'm going to, it's stitched down in there. I'm going to trim that thread. And I'm going to actually have to have it advance to where it comes back to here. And so I'm going to advance it through all of that, or I could go to 16 and go backwards. So I'm going to go to 16 and then I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go back 100 stitches, and where the crosshairs are is where it's at. So I'm going to hit another minus 100. It's still on the window, and I'm just going to do another 100. I've probably, 100 will be too much. Oh, no. There's a lot of stitches in that. Okay, see how I'm back to the barn? So now I'm going to advance it by 10s because I knew 100 was too much. Okay, now I'm going to go back one until it comes back to the door. And I should have, okay, there was the door. So now I just need to go +1. And now I'm back there. And I could have looked at my stitch number and just gone back a few stitches. I was thinking it was a whole step. And now I'm going to tell it to go again. Typically when it comes unthreaded, it stitches about 20 to 30 stitches before it tells you. It's so fast. And then for it to, the sensor to note it, it's already like stitched a good. So rule of thumb is you can just back up 20 to 30 stitches. The other nice thing about these mug rugs is it doesn't use a lot of fabric, and so once you have the designs, you could make it be your own. You know, I do love the red barn, but it doesn't have to be a red barn. But you could, your background or your quilting, maybe you're going to choose a different color. that's what's so fun with these, that you could make them over and over. And I see a thread sticking up there, which usually once I'm done, I kind of go through all those and trim them, but that's kind of bugging me right now. And so I'm going to trim that off because we'll have to do it anyway. So I like to use the tweezers. I have a favorite pair that has disappeared somehow. But it really does grab a hold of those threads, and there, that looks better. All right, now remember we knew that we were going to be stitching the plant detail with the olive, so it's going to look like this. I'll get out of my stitches here. So we're going to start working on the little plants right there. And so I'm going to load my olive thread. And again, that's why I love this thread stand, because I've got them all up here kind of out of the way, and you just hook them in the rubber up here and have your thread ready to go. I love the threader on this machine and how quickly it threads. All right, I'm ready to go ahead and stitch that. And that's a 1 minute stitch out. This kind of gives you the details of what it's going to do. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So we were on the olive green, we stitched the plant elements and 1 and details. Oh, the elements 1, details and fills. And then we're going to change our thread color to the gray, the dark gray, and we're going to stitch the plant elements 3 fills, the rooster fill, the roof fill, the door beam fill, and the windmill details and fills. So that's a crazy long one. So that X, let's make sure that's our dark gray. And so we'll be needing that next. I'm going to go ahead and get it ready. And it is a 12-minute stitch. So I have found I've been able to leave my embroidery machine. I don't like to, but I have. So if you needed to use the restroom or get a cup of coffee or something, once we switch to this gray one, then and so that would be a good time to do that. If you're terrified to leave your machine, then certainly do not. And you can always just not advance to that next step. Okay, so I'm going to take my green thread out. I'm going to load my gray. I was slacking here. I should have had it a little bit more ready. It's close. All right, so let's take a look over here real quick. Since it's 12 minutes, you can see it's a whole lot of stitching. So it's going to do the rooster, the roof, the top of the doors, the windmill, and part of the fill on the plant. So there's quite a bit of stitching that's going to take place. I think it's going to do the rooster first. Yep. So you can just sit and watch it. If you have questions, a good time to send that in the chat, and I'll try to answer them. Pretty straightforward. I think mug rugs are one of the easiest things to do. Isn't that rooster cute? I mean, I thought that it was actually fabric when I first looked at the picture, but that stitching is just so awesome that that's all they needed to do. Even the windmill, I thought surely had to be fabric, and it's just stitches. So we're moving along pretty well. I know we had 2 hours for this, and I thought, how could I go 2 hours? But it takes a while. If you have all your fabric cut and ready, and you just sit down to the machine, I think you can do it hour and a half tops, and maybe even a little less. So even if it's a last minute gift, you could get it done. I'm gonna get my spray tent out of the way while this is stitching, because I'm gonna need my ironing area for when we're at the very end of it. The dust is just so cute. Put some of my threads away. You know, I always look for things when there's a long stitch out that I can do. The only thread left is we're going to do the light green and then the red. So I can put my olive green, my cream, and my yellow away. I should have had a good story to tell you guys why we were doing these longer stitch outs. Okay, this is going to do the top of the door. It's like the rail. If you've ever seen how these barn doors open, you know that's the new fashion in homes now, are barn doors that close off a room, and it's got a rail that goes up there, and these like the big shower doors now as well. And that's actually how they open up. My parents' barn, it's when I was a kid, because we had horses, this upper part was hay storage. So these would open, and then the hay truck would come in, and we would load, we could put all of our hay for the winter up in there. And so it's pretty realistic. And this is the windmill, so it's going to be quite a bit of stitches. Again, when I looked at the sample, I was certain that that had to be some fabric in there, and it's all stitches. So isn't that amazing? This one was kind of fun to watch stitch out too, as it did the blades to the windmill. I don't have a windmill by my barn, but I love them. Like the old ranch style had windmills, and so they just kind of go together. Barn and the windmill. We only have 3 more stitch out steps. After this one, they're each 1 minute. So like I said, this is the time consumer here. This had a lot of stitches in the 12 minutes. And I'm fascinated by, that's a lot of layers of fabric. It's going through batting, stabilized fabric, and the stabilizer. And it just slices through there like butter. Stitches look beautiful. I know Dana's going to do a sew along on, I think maybe the mountain one, mug rug. There was, I think there was like 10 in the kit, which was awesome. And she and I each stitched out half of them for the store display, and then Jeannie had us each pick one for a sew along. know, I watch Jeannie's sew-alongs, and she just is so personable and can just talk away and make jokes. And I need that feedback from someone on the other end. So it's so crazy to like visit with you guys, and then I really don't know if you're like, okay, just be quiet because we're stitching. Or you still went and got coffee and you haven't even come back yet. And I'm just talking to myself. But I think it's awesome that she had us cut the fabric for the kit. That literally you can get nearly you can do 2 mug rugs. Again, she gave you enough for the backing and the front pieces to make 2. Some of them have embellishments, and then you maybe would have to supply that, but it's simple, like ribbon or I'm not sure what all. Maybe there's one of them has glitter. There was one that had some rhinestones, and I think she gives you enough rhinestones for 2. But how awesome is that? So you could keep one yourself and gift one. And they wash up well. I made my parents mug rugs, like a Mother's Day one and a Father's Day one, and then they spill coffee on them, and they wash up well. It's pretty amazing. Little spray and wash. So let's jump ahead again and take a look while that's stitching to see what we'll be doing. I think I told you the light green will be next, and that's going to be the Plant Elements 2 fills. So that's the bigger part of it. And the gray is number 3, so that's going to be done first, and then we'll do that green. And then we're going to go back to red, and we'll be stitching the, where'd I go? We're going to stitch the plant elements, and then we're going to be ready to put the back pieces on. Do those comments, do they come up when we add them to the bottom without seeing anybody else comment? I think I'm...
That's the whole, everything in the whole store is password protected, so if we can't get to them, we can't get to them.
Okay.
Yeah, that,
I was having...
So if she's not answering your comments, it's because we can't see them.
Oh, did you hear that? Michelle's like, because I basically kind of filled the screen with comments, and then...
Then it won't go, it won't travel. But on your phone, no?
I have some thumbs up, but so I'm sorry if you did do comments and then I wasn't able to get to them. Should we ask Jeannie?
She's with Mario right now.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
ask Patrick. I think he's with someone too.
But really, it's it's a pretty simple project. So hopefully you didn't have questions that went unanswered. Because I had a bunch right off and then kind of nothing. So Michelle just came in and I asked her to...
Patrick's with someone right now. So
Okay. Yeah, Michelle thinks that I had to sign in to get more comments. So... Sorry about that. And I was like, who's calling me from Elko? And I'm on Jeannie's phone. I have friends in Elko, you know, being the barn girl and all. I love these newer Kimberbell. I mean, they're old now, but these ones that had the flowers in them,
and then it just kind of stopped.
Here, let me step in there.
Okay.
So I'm going to put my light green in now because we're going to finish off that plant there. Patrick's coming to look to see if there were comments that I just had to sign in to get them. Because I couldn't scroll anymore, so then I wasn't sure if I had more. The boss is in here checking.
Best be on your best behavior. Why does
All right, I'm loading my light green thread. And we'll do just that small part on the plant. And then we'll do the red. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at my sample. Because I don't like to change thread if I don't have to. And so the last step is going to be sewing the back to the front. And I'm going to make sure my threads didn't show. Because we've got this color and the white, but mostly this. I mean, we could use a light color, but if my red thread didn't show through, we'll just stick with that. So here's my sample. And I guess you can kind of see that right there. So maybe I'll switch back to a cream colored. I mean, that's probably about the only place that I see it. But if that bugs you and you don't want that, then we will switch the thread color, even though Kimberbell says it doesn't matter. Well, actually, it's below this. Oh, there we go. Okay. The boss guy is doing things in here. All right, we're ready to switch to the red. And that's just to finish the tops of this flower.
So you're now signed in. I don't know.
Do you think there was more comments? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I just think that's the last of the comments so far.
Well, and I got them initially, so maybe I didn't have to be signed in, right? Or... All right, we're going to go ahead and stitch the last part here, which is going to be the flowers. All right, thank you, Patrick. So maybe even that light green would have been better for this stitch going around, but I think I'm going to put that cream colored back on. Because I can see that red. See that on the edge? Let me get this in focus for you. Let me back the camera up here. See that? That's not good. So I am going to switch to the cream colored. I think that would be the best. Certainly not, the red is an extreme. Maybe if I'd had that gray in there. And even the light green. Jeannie's looking at fabric samples. I love it when I'm hearing the salespeople come and we ooh and ah over. Oh my gosh, there's so many to choose from. And, you know, you have to know what's going to work, what's not going to work. I was a scientist, and so I follow a set of rules. And I don't have that artistic flair. Some people like Dana and Michelle and Jeannie, they're so talented. And my gosh, they can come up with their own designs and But I do really well. That's probably why I love Kimberbell, because it's so structured. All right, I've changed to my linen thread, and we're on that last step. So I'm going to read that on the instructions for you. And this is where we're going to place the 2 prepared back pieces on top of the project, and the folds are going to overlap about 1 inch in the center. And then it says to be sure the previously stitched rectangular tack down line is entirely covered. And then note for seam allowance, the fabric should extend at least 1/4 inch beyond the outer edge of the stitching. And then to prevent the presser foot from catching, we're going to tape the entire exposed areas and the corners. Now, on the very first mug rug in these instructions, these steps have a picture, and they show you how they're taping all this down. And so I probably for today should have brought that with me so that I could have been showing you that, but I'm kind of showing you right here. And so we want to be sure that the center, the fold, goes to the center. And I'm going to pull this forward so you can see. So what they're saying is to be sure that this goes beyond this 1/4 inch. I usually go about to the even with the prior fabric, and then I line this up kind of with this, because then it's pretty centered. You can see I have a little bit less fabric over here, but that's a pretty safe bet if you do it that way. And then we're going to, again, that fold is going to go to the center, and we're going to do the same thing. And then remember it said to overlap it about 1 inch. And then they tell you to tape this whole thing. Well, it's going to come stitched like here and here. So I'm sure because they sell the tape, you know. So we are only going to, and I'm using my same pieces that I had before, and I'm just taping. And the reason is, if you don't do this, when this comes along, it's going to grab this folded piece. It will be kind of disastrous. So that part is pretty important. Then they want you to tape the 4 corners. I got to find my Poppy Eaton tape again. She did a pretty good little job on that. And so it's a little bit tricky to get. Now, I really do like this transport tape. But it doesn't take a very big piece. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I probably will still sort of massage that fabric and keep it down. And the nice thing is when it stitches through there, you can just still remove the tape. It's awesome. That's why I said the painter's tape works. Kimberbell tape. This is the transport tape. That's pretty awesome. All right, so I've taped my 4 corners, and I've taped there. And if you look over at what it's going to do, it's just going to go back around. Remember how we initially stitched down? It's going to stitch on top of that, because it's now going to hold the back to the front. And it's showing me right where it's going to start, right there. And so I have that tape, which is awesome. And then again, I just kind of, but keep your fingers out of the way, but I just sort of keep it so it doesn't have a puffy spot. And that's probably why they tape all the way across. I just sort of help it while it's stitching. And it's going to stitch twice, because this is our important tack down, or tack together, sew together. And since we folded this, you don't have to hem anything. And we're done stitching. We're just going to be finishing it up right here. So let's take a look again at our directions. And this is where it's telling us now we're going to stitch the final outline. We just did it. And then to finish it, they tell you to go to the directions steps 46 to 48 on pages 9 and 10. So the very first mug rug in the directions had way more pages of instructions because they showed you every step of the way. And in fact, so here is step number, this was kind of showing you that fold, how it went. Remember that? That was actually step 43 and how they taped it. So they taped all the way across and the 4 corners. So now we are to step 46 and they're telling us to take the tape off. They say carefully because you don't want to rip out your stitches. And then we're going to take the project out of the hoop and we're going to trim all layers of fabric and stabilizer 1/4 inch away from the final outline. So I'm going to back this up a little bit so you can see. I'm good, thank you. So when they say carefully, this is like here because we've stitched that tape and if I just yanked it off. So you kind of support the stitches and then remove the tape. So it's gonna, now this is, the Kimberbell tape is probably the easiest one to take off. But see how that just came that side? And then now the other one will be free because it's separated. But I still always kind of support my stitches. There we go. There's that one. And obviously the corner is going to be much easier. Unless I stitched through it, but I don't see that so far. And I'll get these corners. And then we just have this one left to get. Throw my tape out. So again, I'm going to support those stitches. I say support, I'm kind of pressing down on them as I tear the tape away because I don't want the stitches to pull away. And once you get 1/2, it's usually pretty good. Awesome. And now we're ready to take our project out of the hoop. And so I'm using my favorite screwdriver again to loosen my hoop. And then we're going to trim it. And when we do that, so I trim, now we've got multiple stitches here. And then over on this side, it's going to be way easier. So this is the side I'm going to lay the ruler on to trim. But I'm going to tear away my stabilizer first. So we used a medium weight tear away. Get all that out of the way. And remember how we already trimmed that batting. That would have been difficult to do at this step. So that's why we did it right at the get-go. So we're going to flip it over. I'm going to lay my ruler on there and I'm going to trim this to 1/4 inch. And then they have us trimming the corners. I'm going to show you that in the directions first. And from experience, so let's see, that was step 46. So let me turn here to 48 and 49. Or excuse me, 47 and 48. So now they have you trim that corner like that, which I agree with and I do. But then they have you take scissors. Well, let's just read. It says clip the corners to reduce the bulk. And then trim across the corner seam allowance, being careful not to cut through the stitches. And see how they're doing this slight angle thing? I have found grief with this. I have somehow still, when I turn my corner, it comes apart. So I feel I almost don't do this. I mean, maybe just a little bit. We'll take some off. For sure, I do the corner. So that definitely is coming off. But that extra little bit, I'm going to leave that up to you. And then we're going to turn it right side out through the envelope. That's the tricky part. And then you're going to gently poke the corners with your corner turner. And then they tell you to use a pressing cloth and press it. We like our wool mats, and we turn our embroidery into the wool mat and we press the other side rather than using a pressing cloth. So I have had, I think these corners came out pretty well, and you could kind of keep working at them. We'll see what we think when we get there. So I'm going to move you over to my cutting mat. So if you want to look away or close your eyes for a minute. I know Michelle puts her hand over the camera, but I'm just going to, I'm trying to figure out the best way to, I'm going to go around backwards, sorry, to move that over to there. Oh, I'm losing the phone. It just popped out of there, and I don't want to shut everything down. Let me try to, I'm going to take it out of the holder. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm wrestling. I'm holding everything. Stand by. You can see our room here. Okay. Let me lock her phone in there. It's kind of stiff.
So you push that button.
Okay.
So it's got to be here.
Okay.
Is where the gripper needs to go. So if you, how do I?
I know, I think that's what was a little tight. There's those little buttons. There we go. Bear with us here. So that's what happened when I put it in there. I just
When you put it in
closed her phone.
there, it just turned the screen off.
Okay, thank you. And then you tightened it with this. So, okay. Awesome. All right. Sorry if any of you got dizzy. Does that look, oh, there's like a delay. How crazy is that? Okay, so I'm going to the cutting mat, and I'm just going to get that there and make sure that you'll be able to see this. It is kind of from afar. So I'm using I love the Creative Grids rulers. They have just become my favorite. And there's this wonderful 1/4 inch here. So I'm going to use that frosted edge. And I'm putting it's got a nice black line, and I can see it on my white threads. So right here, and I'm going to trim that. And I will do the same on this side. And so I make sure it's lined up the whole length of my stitches, and then I'm pressing down on here so it doesn't move. And then I'll show it to you close after I get all this. And a 1/4 inch does leave bulk in there, but if you do it 1/8 of an inch, I find that your stitches come out sometimes. All right, so I've done the 1/4 inch all the way around. So now I'm going to go ahead and take those corners off. And I do it with my rotary cutter, not scissors. I know they're showing scissors in their picture. And this is where they're wanting us to take some extra off, and maybe with scissors. Let me see if I can find some in here. I think I could go ahead and use my embroidery ones. Well, I'm going to try it with these little ones, and I'm just going to take a little bit off. And I'm going to, hopefully that you can see that, because I don't want to Yeah, these aren't the best for that. I needed real scissors. So I'm going to just go ahead and do a little bit with the rotary. I mean, it is getting a little bulk out of there. But I do have some at home, some scissors that would have probably worked and I'd have control with. But from this one, I'm going to come at it this way. And then probably the hardest part of this is turning this thing inside out. You'll see. Okay, I did get a little more bulk off by doing that. So, oh, one more. No, I got it. All right, so let me get my iron going. And this is the tricky part, is turning this thing. Because it's so stiff, you know, it's stabilized. But you just kind of... Jeannie says she always works up a sweat with some of these things that you have to turn. So there's our windmill came out, and now we're going to get this other part. And I'm using my thumb first before my point turner. It's in my fingers because you can push your stitches. Your point turner can go right through your seam. Let me step back over here to this side and I'll bring the camera back with me so that you can see. Oh, I see some more comments. Let's see here. So the design's cute. Can we still get it? Yes, you can still get the design. It's the Kimberbell Volume 6 mug rugs. And thank you for telling me it's going good. I see that something froze up. That was probably when I was trying to get the phone back in here. All right, I'm going to show you. I have a point turner that we don't sell here, but seriously, Jeannie would order anything. It's made by, it's RK, and I love it. And I keep it in the package so I can always find it because it's so easy to get lost. But, you know, you can use chopsticks. So I'm going to work on my corners here. And sometimes they're just not as perfect as we want them. Let me show you from this side. See how that kind of, remember that's how we cut that corner off. And again, like here, I'm going to do this with my finger first because I can get more of that out. And I didn't even check to see if there were any jump stitches that we needed to trim. Remember, I trimmed those two right here that were threads. But look at how awesome that is. I'm going to keep doing some corners with my finger, and then I'm going to use that turning tool. And we sell the fabric kit that has, like I said, fabric for... enough almost for 2 mug rugs of each design, and I really do believe there's 10. And we have all the samples too. They're adorable. All right, there's that one. Let me go over to here to this corner because I didn't like how that one looked. There, that came out better. And here's our 4th one. I mean, it's so cute. Now, I don't like how the back is going to kind of roll to the front. We're going to work on that with when we press it out some. You can kind of try to push some of that to the back. And we use wool mats for all of our embroidery pressing. It's amazing if you get puckers in a design that was, you know, you can get it out by, if it didn't have a back to it and you just embroidered something, Jeannie taught me she'd make a 50-50 mix of Best Press and Terrio Magic. And you spray it on the back of the design and you mush that iron on it. you can get those puckers out. All right, so I'm gonna raise that up a little bit for you guys. And this is the part, like I said, that you can kind of keep working on until you get it how you like it. Let's have a look and see how that's looking. Not too shabby. How cute is that? So I'll probably still press on it a little bit more and get it perfect. Like I said, it's got this nice back. You don't have to have it enclosed. Although someone told me that they could put like a little lavender scent pack in there, and then you had your cup of tea on there, that you'd get a little bit of that nice lavender scent as well. So that's a thought. But you could take a small strip of steam-a-seam and put on there and iron that closed. But you don't have to. And there it is. It's lovely. I hope you guys enjoyed it and that yours is just as cute. And I don't see any other comments on here. I appreciate you guys. This was fun. I hope that there wasn't awkward silence for too long. I'm sorry I dropped the phone on the floor. Anyways, thanks you guys. Appreciate it.